Hey there everyone, Spazzydragon here, aka Syndromes, and welcome to part 3 of my questions and answers videos. Today's question is pretty simple. I have one question. I have the Upholder bomber, and I'm trying to find what weapons I should put on it. This is a list of the weapons I have currently on the ship. I have 2 bomber energy cannons, 2 bomber EMP cannons, 2 bomber turrets, 1 Liberty antimatter cannon, and 1 Incapacitator EMP torpedo. Is this a good setup? And on a side note, I don't do well with fire rocket pods. Thank you very much for your time. Well, this is actually a pretty simple question, and my answers, it really depends on your playstyle and what are you going to use that bomber for. But I suppose before we go into a bit more detail, I just want to tell the newer players out there what exactly a bomber is. Now, I'm currently flying a Rock. This is a civilian bomber, and as you can see, the main thing that separates it from other ships is the fact that it's slightly bigger than a very heavy fighter. Obviously, it also has a bit more armor, it has a bit more regens, and unlike a very heavy fighter, it also has a specific type of weapon. Now, back in the day, the bomber was pretty much considered as one of the best and one of the most versatile ships out there. And the reason was pretty simple. The main reason is this little thing right here. It's called the antimatter cannon. If you've never seen what one looks like, allow me to demonstrate on this ship that I created on my server. As you can see, it is just a regular Mammoth Liberty transport with a light transport gravitron shield. And this is what happens if we hit it with a supernova antimatter cannon. It instantly obliterates the shield, and you probably already see that it actually took most of my power plant in order to fire it. So this is what makes the bomber so very dangerous. This thing actually, if I would have showed you right now, let's just take that pesky little shield off. It's pretty much an insta-kill weapon, and that makes bomber one of the most fearsome sort of ships of its size. It's actually pretty fun when you think about the fact that this little thing that costs about, what, 5 million credits to buy and like 25 million credits to fully set up, this thing can rape a cruiser, which fully set up with a Cap 5 armor costs about 200 million credits. That's just something to keep in mind for those of you who really want to fly a capital ship. You need 2 of these to take down a battleship without any loss. And, well, obviously, a ship like this would need to have some balance set up for it, so obviously it has to be sucky at something else. And, obviously, the thing is actually pretty simple. Let me just pick up a decent amount of speed and fire the supernova again. And as you can see, I can actually... the projectile of the super antimatter cannon is very slow. Actually, let me just show you how slow it is. So the regular fighter guns, the speed for the regular fighter turrets is about from 600 to 750. The civilian antimatter cannon, however, has 280. It's that slow. But obviously, it's very possible. It is possible to hit very heavy fighters with it, and that's actually pretty much what makes this thing so dangerous. One might say, or at least I would say, that the very heavy fighter is for people who want to develop a certain skill to PvP, and the success of you flying a very heavy fighter pretty much depends on your own particular set of skills, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it. On the other hand, the bomber uses not your skill, well, it obviously uses your skill as well, right? But instead, not only that, it also uses the mistakes of your enemy. Welcome back. So the actual question we had is whether or not that setup is good. But I suppose we quickly need to go over what exactly makes what. Okay, so as you can see, I actually have 4 EMP cannons, and as you might expect from that, these EMP cannons are meant to take out shields, and as you can see, they're doing a pretty damn good job. But this also means that I can't do anything once the shield is down with them, so these are specifically only against the shield and nothing else. Now, the civilian antimatter cannon also makes a very good job at de-shielding stuff because of its damage, but well, that we'll talk about a bit later. The thing about whether or not to go with this EMP cannons or the hullbuster cannons is pretty simple. What exactly do you want to do with it? Are you flying with someone? Are you good at shooting very heavy fighters? If so, then the main focus for you at that point would be to take out the enemy shield. So obviously if you're fighting snubcraft in a bomber, which by the way is very inadvisable for new players, because, you know, it does take a bit of skill to actually aim the damn thing, then if that's the case and you still want to do that, then yes, you should go with stuff that you can easily use to take out shields. So obviously it's going to be EMP cannons, it's going to be screamer mines. The screamer mine I'm going to show you right now. It is a anti-shield mine. Well, 2 mines against a shield like that, and you can kill pretty much anything. So obviously, if you're fighting a very heavy fighter, then you know you're also using CDs to you know, explode the mine next to them and take out their shields. And when they're jousting, if they're not particularly skilled, and because you should never joust a bomber if your shield is down, because that is just asking to get like this fired in your face, then yes, that is what you need to do. However, as you would have expected, bombers are very good for solo piracy, or at least they would be if, you know, the transporters weren't equipped with their own specific guns meant to take out these sort of transports. Sorry, these sort of snubcraft. At that point, you might want to go with hullbusters, and the reason is actually pretty simple. Imagine you are fighting a armored transport, which has, as in it has some sort of armor upgrade, and you shoot it with an antimatter cannon, and it remains with about 5% hull. He's completely dry, he doesn't have any regens, and he's almost at the docking port to some station. If you shoot this, then you actually need to wait until you can shoot again. That is the problem with only going with EMPs. But again, imagine you shoot the guy, he has 5%, he's almost at the base, you have to wait until this recharges. If you have hullbusters, you can simply finish the guy off with hullbusters. The only problem is that hullbusters aren't really good against smaller craft, other snubs, other bombers, other fighters, because as you might have actually noticed by now, but they don't fire at a straight line. They sort of go all over the place. Not to mention they are a lot slower than the average fighter gun, although they have better range. See, they only have 400 meters per second projectile speed, so you're probably not going to hit an enemy fighter too much. So if you want to go hunt snubs, then you probably want EMPs. If you want to go hunt larger ships, then you probably should go with hullbusters, because in theory, especially if you have a heavy bomber with a heavy bomber power plant, which has a bit more energy and a bit better regeneration, you can actually dish out a lot more damage per minute by just shooting hullbusters than using the snack. But obviously those two aren't the only types of weapon when it comes to a bomber, and obviously we also have torpedoes, because, you know, it's a bomber, right? So if it's a bomber, it should have torpedoes. And, yeah, might as well show you. Pretty much every base sells all the weapons you need. As you can see, right now I went with a cruise disruptor and a antimatter cannon, which is one of the ways you can do it. Because, you know, it's just one of the ways you can do it. And there are other ways. For example, you have the Nova Torpedo and the EMP Torpedo. Now, what did these do? Let's take a look.
Alpha 2-1. This is Ames Research Station. Good luck out there.
Hello, Trader 2. You're not having a good day, are you? Oh, I forgot to... So yeah, this is actually something you need to keep in mind. The Supernova antimatter cannon uses only your energy. Torpedoes, however, as you might have expected, use ammo. So that is just something you need to worry about. Okay, so the Incapacitator Torpedo, aka the EMP Torpedo, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a short-range, relatively short-range torpedo, which does a whole fuck ton of EMP damage, and actually, you know, we might as well test it out on a bigger ship, because, you know, this is just a civilian ship, civilian trader. And there we go. I think this is a bit of a more fitting ship to show you these guns at. So the battleship is pretty much the bomber's main target because, you know, other ships, apart from other battleships, can't really take it out that easily without gaining... Yeah, this is actually something you need to remember. The bomber is a very good ship because it's very hard to hit. Now, I'm going to try and demonstrate it to you because I'm actually... I have this thing on my... Yeah, there we go. So the thing about the battleship is the fact that its weapons are very slow. So if it's shooting you and you're a battleship, you can't dodge these things that good, especially from close distance, right? And you might take out the enemy battleship, but you are going to suffer a lot of damage in return. The bomber, at the same time, as you can see, it can actually just dodge incoming fire quite easily. Actually, obviously, I'm not really doing a good job right now because I'm actually controlling the battleship at the same time on the different mouse. So, well, that's the idea. Actually, let's just start with the torpedoes. So this is a Nova. It's pretty much a supernova antimatter cannon that tracks. That's pretty much everything. As you can see, it actually doesn't take as much energy to fire, and you can fire safely from a pretty good distance, and they are going to track. The only problem is that obviously if the enemy has a countermeasure dropper, then obviously they are going to evade it. There's also the battleship flag turret, which is going to purposely knock these torpedoes off course, so that is also something you need to keep in mind. Scan your enemy. If they have a flag turret, don't waste your torpedoes. You need to get a supernova antimatter cannon. Obviously, the antimatter cannon has a much shorter range, so you actually have to fly a bit closer to the damn thing. And yeah, the Incapacitator is actually one of the less used torpedoes, just because the fact that it doesn't really do that much more damage than a supernova would do on a shield, and some people would just say it's a complete waste of time to carry two sets of torpedoes if you can go with a supernova just for shield busting and the Nova torpedo just to keep out of range of enemy capital ships, so you just chip away at them slowly, and that's pretty much it. In short, what loadout should you use on a bomber? Pretty simple. Again, it completely depends on what you're doing. If you are running around with a group, so you can drop the cruise disruptor, you can get a torpedo and the supernova antimatter cannon. If you are fighting snubs, you probably want to get EMPs. If you're fighting If you're pirating, you probably should go with hull busters, and well, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that's going to that's going to be a bit of help. Anyway, this was Spazzydragon questions and answers video. If you have your own questions, drop them off here at the comments below, or actually PM them to my YouTube inbox thing. I'm sort of reading them a bit more than I used to. Anyway, have fun.